Hi there. Welcome to Stamping with Diane. I'm Diane Evans and I'm an independent Canadian Stampin' Up Demonstrator here in Canada. This is another one of my Back to Basic videos, and we're just talking about different products that are with Stampin' Up. And today I'm going to talk about the blender pens. Now this is a product that's been around for many years with Stampin' Up. And I've had lots of inquiries on how to use it. So let's go about and find out how to use it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to switch my camera around. And then what we'll do is we'll get into the details of it. All right, so let me just move this out of the way. All right, so this fantastic tool can be found on the bottom of one page, on page 146 and 147. Now, they're blender pens. They come in a pack of 3. They last forever. Trust me, they last forever. And on these here, they have 2 ends to them, and they're kind of a brush end. They're quite a heavy brush end. They have a magical solution that's in them, and I'm not sure what exactly it is. These, like I say, these are really a great tool. Now, the ends might stain, but no worries. All you have to do is you just have to take off just a scrap piece of paper, and you can just take the colors off. So let me move this one out of the way, my catalog out of the way, and I want to show you some uses with these blender pens. Don't get them mixed up, or the blender pens. Don't get them mixed up with the stamping blends. Totally different product. This is a product that works with watercolor. The other are with the alcohol. So these work great with things like stamp pads. They work great with watercolor crayons. They work really good with our markers. And they work really good, and I picked out the dullest colors I could have, with our Reinkers as well. Now, one thing just as a note, every time that you do buy a stamp pad, you should always buy a Reinker. And the only reason I'm saying that is because you go grab your stamp pad, and if you by accident left it open, it could dry up very quickly. And nothing more frustrating when you go to use a certain color that it's kind of dull and it's kind of light. So that's my word of advice, is always buy a Reinker. And there are lots of uses for Reinkers. So that gives me another reason for another video, right? Okay, so on to that. We'll just push those out to the side. For this, we're going to need certain types of paper and certain types of ink. Another thing that you are going to use with this, which is totally different than with the other markers, is StazOn. Now, StazOn is a solvent ink pad. Remember to get the Reinker. These do tend to dry up quite a bit quicker than the other ones. So what you want to do also with this type of a stamp pad is you always store it upside down, because what that allows is that the ink stays to the top of the ink pad. In your Stampin' Up markers, they're always upside down anyways, so that's keeping the ink to the top there. Okay, so we have the StazOn ink. This also needs a special type of cleaner. I use these with my rubber or my clear mount stamp sets. I don't use them with my photopolymer. I just don't like what the solvent does to the photopolymer. It doesn't destroy them, but I just don't like what it does to my stamp set. Okay, so what I did was I have, oh, and one other thing I have to mention when you have this is it works great on the shimmery white cardstock and also our watercolor paper, because it is a water-based thing. That's why I'm saying these two are good. You can use it with the Whisper White, but I find that if you work it too much, that it does tend to pill. So I've got some watercolor here, and I've got some shimmery white, so I'm going to show you that. So we're going to ink up, and this stamp set happens to be the Free as a Bird stamp set. And I'm just going to use this image. We're not going to be making a card today. For my blog post, I will probably have a card that's done up with this particular one here. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to ink that up with the Stays On. And I don't know about you guys, but this Stays On is the most delicious smelling stamp set. It smells like marzipan. Okay, so this is on to the shimmery white. The one thing that you need to do with this that's a little bit different is you have to hold this down. And you want the paper to saturate that Stays On paper. And see, I didn't have that enough. So let's ink that up again. And I'm thinking that maybe what I need to do is re-ink up my stamp pad. So that's the reason why we have our reinkers around. And this is a canvas base ink pad, so it tends to sink in very, very quickly. You can see how quickly that sinks in. And just turn it upside down, and all I'm going to do is just re-ink that up now. Yeah, I've got that on there really good now. So we're just going to do that. Make sure that the paper saturates it. You've got time to let it saturate, and see, that's much clearer. And we're going to stamp a couple of those birds. You know, while we're at it, let's stamp another one. That's on the shimmery white, and then this is on watercolor. This one's a bit denser. You'll find you can get lots of different types of watercolor paper out there. Like it is with paper, you get what you pay for, right? So, all right. I'll just do another one here. And then this way you're going to be able to see what you can do. Now, because this is a Stays On cleaner, or a solvent, it stays on, but it's a solvent cleaner. It is also, it's hard to remove from your stamp pads. So I use a Stays On cleaner. I just dab it on there. And it's a totally different type of a cleaner. You would not want to use this cleaner on any of your ones that you don't need to use it. And then all you do is just take this and just rub it off. It would tend to sometimes stain it a bit. Stays On does do that. Stays On's really a neat thing too, because you can do it onto glass and that sort of stuff. Okay, so I've got my spare piece of paper there. So we're just going to go in, and I think the first thing that we're going to do is let's color with a stamp pad. Now, these are the new stamp pads, so you need to go onto the back and just press down, and it gives yourself a painting pellet here. Okay, so another thing that you could do is you could take your reinker, and you can put that there to get a more intense color. So let's go ahead and let's color a tiny bit of the bird. Now, this is going to be kind of like a sparrow, just because sparrows have the different colors. But you see how you can just pull that in and color. Different concept completely, because what we're doing is we are watercoloring now. We're not coloring with an alcohol base. But you can bring it out so that it's lighter colors. You can be more intense. If we wanted to go in here, we could go more intense of a color. And then at that point, it looks like you're just going to rub it onto your spare piece of paper until it goes clear. And then you can play with this a little bit more. You can make it a little bit lighter. The more you play with it, the bigger your chances are of making it pill, because this is a shimmery white. Now, if I went to the watercolor paper, which is meant for this kind of coloring, you can play with the colors so much more, because I'm going to actually bring some of that in and follow the Stampin' Up. So you can see this actually, because it is purposely a watercolor paper, that it's meant for this type of coloring on there. Okay. Okay, so there's the two different ones together. This really does, the right tools are the best, but this does work okay with it. Now, if by any chance you don't have the big stamping markers or the stamp pads like this, you can turn around and just take, if you had a spot, and you can just take your spot and you can do that onto the corner of a block. And then you can use that as a color palette as well. So let me bring in that pan again. Just make sure it's good and clean. And I could bring that in there. Now this is going to give a tiny bit different of a color because just of the intensity of the ink. You say pretty dull looking birds, right? But we can give it a different chest color there, which we will do in a bit. Okay, so like I say, there we go. That shows you how to use a stamp pad with it, how you can use the re-inker in there, or if you have a stamping spot, you can do it like that. Okay, remember to just take it and take your blender pan. And see, this is stained a tiny bit, but it doesn't come out that way. So you can use these on any kind, any color. You're not limited to, you could use this pen with every single color that you wanted to during the day. Now say I wanted to use, there's other ways that you can do this. You could take your marker, and to me, I find this is a lot of work. This takes way more work, is I could take my marker and I could go like that. And then I would have to go in here with my blender pen and pull it out. And sometimes that takes a lot more work to do, but you can do it with just the markers as well. Okay, but see, it's way more intense of a color. So just, again, make sure that we've got that cleaned off. Okay, then the other things that you can use with it are your watercolor. Your watercolor crayons. So let's go here and let's put a watercoloring pencils. The key to this is not making sure that you go like, do it dark and go into that. You don't need to. All you need to do is just lay down a bit of the color. And then we're going to go in with our pen. And at that point, we can intensify it there. Now this is on the shimmery white. And here you see how dark that is. And that's because we laid an awful lot of color down onto that paper. And we really didn't need to lay that much color down on that paper. Okay, so that's kind of giving you an idea of what you can do with that one. All right, then there's other ways that you can do this as well. I still say that this is the nicest. Let's go back to this pencil. Let's lay down a tiny bit of that color onto the watercolor paper. Make sure that's good and clean. And see, it really intensifies. But you can also bring this color out and fade the color as well. I'm not very good at coloring birds, I can see that. Flowers are more my thing. So then there's another way that you can also do this. And this is kind of a neat way of using this pen, is we have different things that, you know how you could take your markers. So let's just take a marker. We could color well, no, let's do it this way. Let's take, see, a stamp pad, and say we want to ink up this whole one like this. And I'm going to put this onto another piece of cardstock. So let me just grab a piece of cardstock. And we can just stamp that like this. Whoops, that wasn't very good. We'll stamp it like this. And then we can go, oh, but I can't enough. So I can take my blender pen and I can just take this color off of here. Remove that color like this. And then, of course, because we're doing it, the marker on there, we're going to have to huff. And then let's just stamp like that. So you're kind of getting rid of that color. I think I'd have to work at that a little bit more, but where you have just the thank you on there. So there's that way of doing it. Then you could also, see how useful these things are? We want to make sure that we've got that color out of there, right? Let's just, there it's clear. Let's close this up. And I want to show you something that's really a great idea. I'm going to take this new Misty Moonlight, and I'm going to take this flower, and this flower is from the Tasteful Touches stamp set. This would be really good also to do this particular technique with this feather. But anyways, we're going to do this. And let's just ink this up. Now this is on the shimmery white. Okay. Then what we can do, oops. Good thing I had that half closed, or else I would have had blue on my carpet down here. Then you can take this blender pen. Remember to make sure that you've got it good and clean. And now you can just take this, and you can now get different shading in here. This works especially well with soft suede. I love that look with the soft suede. So this gives you a different look again with your stamps. So as hidden as this may have been in your catalog, what a useful tool. And like I say, it comes in 3s. I've had these for probably 10 years. Mind you, I have not used them as much as I possibly should have. I shouldn't hide them away is what I shouldn't do. But yes, there's your blender pens. So lots of uses, especially when you're starting out. You don't have as many tools as you do with other things. It's a water base. And see, you just get it where it's bled out a little bit and gives a bit of shading. So I hope that gave you some inspiration to try these blender pens. Like I say, they do come in packs of 3. And there's $16.25 for a pack of 3 here in Canada. Excuse me. And there's so many different techniques that you can do with it. I think once you start playing with the watercolor paper, and that's what I'm going to do my card for my blog post, I think you'll see how beautiful that it actually turns out. So if you do not have a demonstrator, I'd love to be your demonstrator in Canada. I do give away, for every online order, I give away a tutorial. The tutorial, and it's only good up until today, is a masculine cards. And it's actually really kind of a neat one, because it's a bunch of different demonstrators that have used all pile of different stamp sets. But I do give a free tutorial every single month. And if you do use that hostess code, I'll send it out to you electronically. So I hope that that's helped you. Leave some comments below. If you have any questions, leave some comments. Also subscribe to my YouTube channel. And thanks for stopping by. Bye for now.